So, Victor, cheers for coming on. Victor is definitely an overachiever of sorts. He's a quantitative researcher working out of New York, studied in Paris and America and also Asia, China specifically. And I really want to learn a lot about him from what his line of work entails, because I think that's actually a fascinating, not just to say a fascinating line of work, but also a extremely influential future of financial markets as well. And then also Victor himself runs the YouTube channel, Victor Liu, where there's a lot of talk about personal development, finance, but it's more of a lifestyle philosophy from what I gained in your most recent videos. Mm-hmm. Then you're also writing online, all the good stuff. But yeah, how's that for an introduction? Did I miss anything major that I should have included?
Yeah. Basically, everything is correct. So I was born and raised in France, and basically I arrived in the US only from last year. So that's when I started working.
And where does China fit into it?
China, actually, I was trying to learn Chinese because I didn't learn Chinese growing up. So because I think it's going to be like the future, the next 20 years, I think China is going to play a big part in it. There's artificial intelligence, and the other trend for me is China. So I was like, I need to be prepared,
It was a strategic move.
Yeah, it's like to learn Chinese as well as I can, because I think there's going to be a lot of flourishing businesses and opportunities in China.
Interesting. I love China chat. It's funny you bring it up. I think I have more of a pessimistic view over the next 20 years of China, with that being said. But that's cool. So you're tackling 3 totally different language sets. I mean, the difference between French and English is 2 other worlds. And then let alone you bring Mandarin. Is it Mandarin?
Yeah, Mandarin
as well.
Yeah,
it's its own alphabet, let alone how you speak it.
Mm-hmm.
So good on you. But I suppose that is a testament to your personality. You clearly have quite an analytical mind. I mean, quantitative researcher for developing machine learning for trading is pretty wild.
Yeah.
After having gone through the education in France, why did you decide that New York was where you wanted to go?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty simple, answer. It's like, the top schools, in the top ranking are still in America, like MIT, Berkeley, Stanford. So I was very curious to see what was the difference between the American system and the French system. And why it was ranked so much higher, And also another reason was like, I had a lot of people I admired in the US. It's like they created all the GAFAs, like Facebook, Google.
Okay.
They had all the top companies. So I really was curious to see what it was like to be on the inside.
Yeah.
What was the difference of mentality between a French and an American. So.
And what have you discovered so far?
Yeah, so I think the French is more, he thinks of a very clear plan before taking action. And the American just jumps in the pool, and thinks his plan all the way. And actually I think it's a world of business. It might be more efficient, because you make a lot of mistakes, but you correct them on the way.
Yeah.
Whereas the French doesn't even want to make the mistake.
It reminds me of the notion that partly for America's amazing commercial success is because they do have that culture that just comes right out with it. They just jump in without a plan, and they allow themselves many iterations of failure, more iterations than most other cultures and economies would allow themselves, more culturally almost. It's not that shameful to have failed in America or to have gone out of business or to be on your 5th business, for example, whereas most other cultures would, there isn't an equal level of pride by saying, well, this is actually my 5th attempt at a business. Americans will pat you on the back and be like, wow, that's amazing hustle. You're amazing. Whereas a French person might just sort of snub their nose and be like, you're not very good at business, are you? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
exactly. It's like, it's action overthinking here.
No. But you said you came over there to study, but right now you're working, right? Or you're studying as well?
Yeah, I'm working.
Can you tell me what your work is? Because I only understand the title of it, but
Yeah,
I really
quantitative
would like to
researcher.
understand
For
more.
me, basically, it's like data science applied to financial markets.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like we're using a lot of machine learning algorithms to try to automate certain parts of the financial markets.
Okay.
For example, one project I've worked on was quoting prices. So I don't know if you know what a market maker is.
You can explain it for the audience.
So a market maker basically sits at both sides on the bid and on the ask. So bid is like what are you willing to pay to buy the asset, and ask is the same for selling.
Mm-hmm.
So market makers, they make the difference in the bid ask spread. And in fixed income, basically you have what you call a request for quotes.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to quote a price in order to, so a client comes and a lot of dealers quote price, and the client takes the best price.
And the client is the buyer in this case, just the
So he can be the buyer or the
institutional
seller.
buyer or the
Yeah, exactly.
at home buyer.
Yeah, so it comes to this type of auction, and he takes the best price. So one algorithm I've been working on was how to quote that price in order to win the auction.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to take a lot of parameters in the market, in the competition.
Mm-hmm.
So you do that for a period in the past,
Yeah.
and you think that statistical process will be the same over the future, and now you have an algorithm. And before it was maybe traders quoting manually based on their experience,
Yeah.
and their own pattern findings. Now you do
subjective.
it with, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a project that's pretty very interesting.
Is the purpose of the algorithm to just replace manpower to then decrease the costs for the financial institution, or is it to be faster?
I mean, it's kind of both. It's like now it's replacing some humans, so it saves some costs,
Yeah.
and it's also faster because the algorithm just is nearly instantaneous. You know, it reacts to all.
Is there a bigger benefit from the fact that it's faster, or is the purpose of the algorithm to eventually just save costs? To
Yeah,
so
I think it's more saving costs.
Can oversee 1,000
saving
traders.
costs, because after you have also the P&L. So how much profit have you made from your trades? So sometimes the goal is not to just win the trade. It's like because you just quote a very big margin to win the price.
Yeah.
But it's like if you enter the trade and then make losses, it's not good either. You want to enter only when it's profitable to you. So it has a direct impact on your profit and loss.
Mm-hmm.
So it's directly linked to the balance sheet. But in terms of speed, I think the speed is a big factor for high frequency trading. But in my domain, it's not a key factor. But some hedge funds, like high frequency trading, it will be a bigger factor. Yeah.
And you said your domain was fixed income. Can you define that for us as well?
So fixed income is basically how governments fund themselves. It's so issuing bonds with some rates. So fixed income has all those instruments. Also, you have the corporate bonds. So it's like any instrument that has a rate attached to it is a fixed income instrument. And this is compared to the equity space, where it's not more simply just stocks of companies.
When you say a rate, is that an interest rate?
Yeah, interest rate.
Okay. It's so funny, like myself, listen to a lot of investing podcasts, do a lot of investing myself. but it still becomes so confusing, when the Scrabble pieces of the industry are trying to be explained and defined.
It's like
There is such a problem with the language jargon in finance. Makes it just so distasteful to try and even get involved in.
Yeah, it's like it's like this jargon. It's like they have the
Overly jargonized.
Sometimes I mean, Bond. It's a pretty standard name, but sometimes they have also some nickname or for different specific instruments. So it can get very, very, I mean, dark, or you don't get anything. You don't understand anything. So basically, I discovered Nassim Taleb pretty recently. Actually, I think maybe last month.
Oh wow! Really recently? Okay.
Yeah, very, very recently. And I liked his talks about anti-fragility, and I really love how he applies finance to his own life. He thinks of his life in terms of risk. For example, he says like volatility is good for you. It makes you stronger, and really, I think, finance, for me, I consider it more as a philosophy than really a domain, because everything that you do to risk manage your portfolio of instruments, you can apply it to your own life. For example, there's this principle of diversification, that, don't put all your eggs in one basket. And actually, I made I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I applied to the universities in America.
Yeah.
And I applied only to one university, MIT. And I was like, I applied to all the masters at MIT. I was like, and I didn't apply to any other. So I put everything, and I didn't get in.
Yeah, too high risk approach.
Yeah, I was like, but I was so confident. I was like, I have very good grades. I'm probably getting in. And actually, this really taught me the principle of diversification. I was like, even if you're very confident, you still need to diversify.
The reason why I brought Nassim in is because as you were describing what you're doing, how you're writing code, which is going to create an algorithm that matches the market, and all the variables you're looking at is historical data, right?
Yeah.
And then this is supposed to be the best metric that we can have to then predict the future. So your algorithm can be closer to the mark than a live human reacting in real time. And I don't know what Nassim says about this, actually. I'm sure he has a strong opinion about it since he himself worked for so many years.
He has a lot of criticism about this approach. I think he talked about
quantitative analysis, not analysis, about
in the risk
machine learning
management.
Trading.
I mean, in the risk management approach of using historical data.
Yeah.
Because basically, if you use that approach, you never predict the black swan that's going to appear, because the black swan, by definition, you don't have them in the data.
Yeah.
And his view is that you can never predict the black swan, no matter how hard because by definition, you cannot.
No, by definition, you can't.
You can't. Yeah. And I completely agree with him. So
the black swan is actually my favorite of the works. Looking at Mediocristan and Extremistan.
Yeah. I haven't read the Black Swan, but I really need to read that.
Oh, you do. So you're precisely right as well in sort of surmising what Taleb's feelings are about predicting the future. But he says, how can you predict the infinite possibilities of the future based on the finite experiences of the past? We think we live linearly.
Yeah, that's very deep.
Yes, because it is true that based on your experience, you can predict forward what your experience might look like. But every time you move forward, you enter into the realm of the infinite. And within the infinite, there are, 50 standard deviations on either side of the distribution events that can happen. And they're extraordinarily unlikely, but they're nonetheless possible. And you can't write that big of an outlier into your model, and then the black swan will then wipe you out, and that's obviously
exactly reason. It's like That's what I like about data science or algorithm. It's like, for example, you have decision trees. It's like you have a limited, number of possibilities for the future. But life, it's the same but infinite. So you see the beauty and the complexity of life at the same time. You're like, wow, if I walk 1 centimeter to the left, maybe my life will change. It's like it's like maybe our talk, today.
Yeah.
It's like it's gonna activate something in the universe. I don't know, like it's like it's a small thing,
Yeah.
but it's like but it took a pass in the trees of possibilities that maybe created something very big, in the trees of possibilities.
Yeah, totally. It's the idea of the butterfly effect. You never know what action you might have taken that's going to spur whatever the future outcome is going to be. But it sounds like you're thinking about these ideas in your life. When I discovered him and started really thinking about it as well, the notion of serendipity became so real to me, something that I'd never paid attention to at all. And how familiar are you with the idea of serendipity?
I mean, the fact that I don't really get exactly that concept. It's like the chance factor that.
Well, yeah, you were kind of just talking about the decision tree, right? And you said, well, perhaps our conversation could somehow trigger some link that takes you down a whole nother decision tree and completely changes whatever the future you couldn't even predict of your life. And, I think about with yourself, making YouTube channels, writing stuff on the blog, coaching a lot of people, teaching at the university, also working a very high resolution job. By putting as many little experiences out there, not just little, but putting as many experiences out there as you can, each one broadens the decision tree where
exactly.
And then you open yourself up to the chance for serendipity, which is just the positive consequence, totally random chance.
Oh, I see. Yeah. It's, I think something that I think Nassim talked about in Anti-Fragile. It's like this asymmetrical payoff. It's like, for example, you have a little bit of pain, for example, uploading a YouTube video, but the payoff, most of the time it's zero, but sometimes it's like 1 million. So
Precisely.
It's like, you just need one video to blow up, and but it costs you the same amount of effort roughly for each of your videos. So that's why I love YouTube. It's like a small investment every day, but the payoff can be can be gigantic.
100%. Yeah. The idea of looking for asymmetries in your life is also such a beautiful, clean, crisp concept.
Yeah. So that's really beautiful. And also kind of to come back to YouTube, like I started only 2 weeks ago. I had a few videos before, but it's like, this trend of technology. It's like, I don't know if you know Cal Newport.
Yeah, I read his Deep Work.
Deep Work and digital minimalism. So me, I'm pretty. I try to use not too much. Technology. There's a lot of negative effects of technology on your life. On your focus, on your productivity, and it's like, how can you use the technology positively for your life? For example, social media or all those different platforms. And I was like, basically YouTube, it's my training ground. It's like, I was like, simply because English is not my first language. I was like, putting a video every day, it's going to train me. Because now it's in the open, it's everybody can see it, even though right now there's probably only my mother watching my my videos. I'm like, still it's out in the open, and it keeps me.
You've opened yourself up to the ridicule and all the worst case scenarios.
Exactly. Yeah. So it builds kind of this groundedness in you. And what's really beautiful about that is like you improve, even if you don't want to improve, you improve every video.
Speak more about how you're leaving technology out of your life. So as someone who works with technology, are you more saying specifically social media, or are you saying technology?
Yeah, I think the social media is a big negative impact. I mean, when I was studying back in France, I didn't have a social media for many years because every time I got so distracted. And I was really inspired by Cal Newport. I was reading his book like 10 years ago, and he was a big advocate of quitting social media.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, I started my social media actually, Facebook, Instagram, only last year. So
Wow, very late adopter.
yeah, very late. Very late.
That could credit for why you have done like so well academically.
Yeah, because I didn't have anything to
Distractions,
focus. I didn't have anything else to focus on. Yeah, my mathematics were the most interesting field for me because I had nothing else.
Do you tackle maths ever as a hobby?
Now not too much, but before, yeah, I was like, it was really beautiful to do the proofs and everything. But now it's more, I would say, programming.
Okay.
It's like you kind of understand the theory and you just go directly to the application.
How much maths do you need to know versus how much is your just ability to write good code, the factor for your work? Like, is other people feeding you the financial information and then you get this brief and then you just code up the brief, or are you also responsible for getting the financial information?
Yeah, I mean, mathematics, I would talk about, for example, data science. It's like you need to know some math to understand what's going on under the hood. Mm-hmm. But you don't need, if you knew like zero math, actually you could do a lot of impressive like data science applications. It's like, for example, now the packages are so well made that you just have the data, you know how the model works, which are the parameters, and you can optimize your algorithm without knowing any of the math, any linear algebra, basically, yeah, nothing, because it's so well packaged now. Because it's like if you had to code the algorithm, you need to know basically how everything fits together. Yeah. But since everything is already coded, you just apply the work of somebody else.
So were you then hired for your mathematical ability rather than your coding ability?
I mean, yeah, I like understanding the math behind, because it's like if you don't understand the math, at one point you will be limited. It's like when you're at the edge of the field, kind of.
It's a curious part of what I'm seeing from the outside as part of your personality, because you're doing online coaching, you're teaching people, you're making content online. There's clearly a very interpersonal nature through all of that, which isn't to say that necessarily coding or hard maths doesn't have an interpersonal nature, but I guess it's just an atypical personality characteristic, which is interesting.
Yeah, do you think about that? To tell you a little bit more about my background. When I was younger, I wanted to be a painter, like an artist, like Picasso or something.
Yeah.
So, but I was also very good at math. So I kind of took the logical path of more income, like the most money.
Sure.
Because I couldn't decide between the two. But I always thought of myself as more of a generalist. So
generalist.
A generalist. Like I liked art, but I like science too.
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted to combine different domains. Now, for example, even my channel, I talk about kind of topics that are similar. I mean, at the surface, different. Self-help, data science, and it's like for me, there's a way somehow to combine them, because in society nowadays, they try to put everybody in kind of this specialist mode. Mm-hmm. It's like you're good at only one thing,
Hyper specialization.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, it's like now technology has come to a point where we can become kind of generalist again. But, it's like you put maybe your entrepreneurship skills, I don't know, with art or with science. It's like you kind of combine both and create these new things that never existed before. And I think one of the best generalists is Steve Jobs. He loved meditation,
Oh yeah.
spirituality, and he wanted to combine this with technology. And that's what was so spectacular with MacBook. Is like it's not about or iPhone. It's not about the MacBook or the iPhone. It's about it's so simple. It's like it's spiritual even. I mean, when I see
Really?
a MacBook, it's like
No. I kind of, I don't really like the Steve Jobs example with that.
Why?
No, just because I do see where you're coming from, but I think there is so much over embellishment of the sort of survivorship bias that Steve Jobs led behind. Apple is the most valuable company in the world and produces amazing products. But I just think maybe the biopics that came out after him and all the stories you hear about Steve Jobs after start to confirm this idea where, the notion that meditation is built into Mac more than it might be built into PC. I'm not totally sold on that. I think what's true is that for sure, just tangibly, Steve Jobs' attention to calligraphy made him appreciate the aesthetics of the product, made him really appreciate the aesthetics of the product, but not necessarily for the purposes of meditation and spirituality, but simply from a marketing perspective.
For me, like
the eye likes beauty.
I mean, it's only the surface. For me, it's something deeper. It's like you cannot have just beauty without the kind of this dimension of spirituality. I mean, it's a little bit far fetched, but this is kind of my theory, because it's like there's a lot of beautiful things before Steve Jobs. Like they had all those good designers for PC, but it never really came to such a point as Apple. It's like and for me, like reading his biography when he was like having those trips in India to find some guru to really meditate every day for hours and hours. I think it played a big role. And instead of calligraphy, because
I think maybe it certainly played a role in affecting his worldview, affecting the differentiating his appreciation of maybe poverty, but also what the potential of people are versus his other Silicon Valley comrades.
So that's why I was. But what was really interesting is that this combination of two different domains that people never saw before. So that's what really resonated with me. And I was like, oh, I need to do the same. I need to combine different aspects that are usually not connected. Because when I was back in high school, in the math class, like I was nearly the only one who took art classes at the same time.
Yeah.
I love both. So, but they were like, no, Victor, you need to focus only on math or only on art. You cannot do both. I think Tim Ferriss also talks about that, generalist versus specialist. And he's more also on the generalist side.
He's certainly a generalist, yeah.
And because he like all his books, like the 4-hour work week. Then he's shifted to the 4-hour body, the 4-hour chef. So he tries everything, and I like that.
Yeah, he's a really exceptional guy. There's fucking no doubt about that. And I do like what you're saying in pointing out the fact that you're sort of striving towards being a generalist. I think
what Tim Ferriss said was like, for example, if you take basketball and you want to be in the top, the likelihood of being in the top is very, very, very small. But if you're a generalist combining two domains, there's not a lot of people who combine the domains, so it's easier to do that.
Yeah, he's certainly one of the first, and can be credited with starting quite a large movement around the proficiency of an email list, the potential of podcasting, flywheeling it all together. Yeah. But I really, as you were speaking, it made me think, I like the idea of the pursuit of erudition.
What is that?
Erudition is just to...
erudition. Okay,
right.
Got it.
The pursuit of erudition, which matches within the generalist theme. But it's just so much more exciting, because you can be a hyper specialist, and that's extremely impressive to meet someone who is... For example, for you, the thing that impressed me the most about you when I was reading your profile was that you're working at the real cutting edge of maths. And that requires crazy discipline, a lot of education, and that's a very hyper specialism. And I think that's great. But isn't it more exciting the fact that, well, you'd rather sort of combine painting and mathematics? Not necessarily sure how that would work, but just the fact that it is like an ambition, I think that's very exciting. And then for most people, I think creating content on YouTube and writing, they, like were sort of filtering through to, similar personality types almost. And so you can get a bit of a skew in the data there, looking at all the content creators. Well, they might be the generalists. And that's where like the generalist mind tends to go, because these days there's really, like, looking for asymmetries. There is pretty much no downside to recording what you're doing and putting it up on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
There really is no downside. And there's enough examples out there of people who do it with extremely low production value and low professionalism who still make it. Because all you need is 10,000 subscribers, which is a hell of a lot of subscribers, but in the ocean, it's just a drop. All you need is that, and it will just totally re-legitimize whatever projection you had in your life, because then all these touch points of serendipity come into it, and
exactly.
Your tree of opportunities just exponentially grows.
Yeah, and I think Nassim Taleb is also kind of a generalist in some way. It's like he was super specialized, as a volatility options trader, and he was like, oh, how can I apply all of that to my own life? Yeah. So it really needs to, so a hyper specialist, he cannot do that. I mean, he's so
definitely cannot do that. Yeah,
he's so into the field that he's super good at his field, but he cannot generalize that to other domains.
Think of some of the most famous generalists. As we're talking, I'm just thinking like Richard Feynman, Leonardo da Vinci.
Like
I love these type of characters.
Da Vinci is probably the best generalist out there. I mean, he was good at everything, I think.
Yeah, he was pretty fucking good at everything. He's certainly a generalist. I mean, he sort of gives the compliment that erudition is one of the best compliments you give a person, to say that they're erudite. And if you read the inserto, you realize that it is a book about, well, it is a 5-part book about risk management, essentially. But it's way more than that. And you can only make it way more than that if you have, an exceptionally long reading list and an exceptionally curious mind, a mind that isn't necessarily ever satisfied with being told that's the definitive final go of it. Rather you're like, well, I want to see how it connects here and it connects here. Maybe that's a bit of the math, because he's a mathematician at heart as well. That's his like favorite hobby. So maybe you can speak as a fellow mathematician.
Yeah, it's like I think he said it in his own book. He said like he's an economist, but also like he has this bodyguard body type. It's so that's really when
he fucking loves himself for doing deadlifts.
Yeah, for lifting. I think the first time I searched his Twitter, he was like doing deadlifts. Or I was like, I think I clicked on the wrong guy, but actually it was him.
Yeah, it
was him. So I was like, when I saw that, I was like, wow, he's a generalist.
Yeah,
that's really unique. There's not a lot of generalists out there.
No, maybe that says that there's a big hunger for them.
And that's kind of my view on the world. Is like now that technology has become so developed, it will lead to the rise of generalists, because you don't need so many specialists to maintain the platforms. And now you can just you have 5 different technologies, you combine them and create something new.
So give me an example of that. What are you thinking of?
It's like for example, just YouTube. It's like it's such an opportunity because people, what they want to see, it's like they get bored very easily. They always want to watch the next thing.
Yeah.
So it's like, when you see a generalist, like you're like, wow, it's something that I never saw before. And if it's well made and it's relatable, that's something that has tremendous power. That's kind of my view. Like, the Tim Ferriss, even the book, I think, Ultralearning by Scott H. Young. He's a generalist. He's like, he has all those learning challenges. He had like a computer science challenge, an art challenge, a language challenge. He's like a full generalist.
That was a series of YouTube videos you made as well, right?
Yeah, he made some YouTubes about it, but
No, but you made a series.
Oh
of
yeah,
videos.
So basically, I kind of took the same name as the term ultra learning, but I was really heavily inspired by Scott H. Young because I discovered the guy 10 years ago, and it really impacted me how I think about life.
That's an amazing point, isn't it? To be able to look back on.
Yeah, I was like, wow, I
You
discovered
discover a
the
book
guy,
and a set of ideas, and it
I
actually
discovered the guy,
reorients you.
yeah, 10 years ago, and now he's like this Wall Street bestseller. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, wow.
You should reach out to him, man.
With who?
You should reach out to him.
Oh yeah. I will. I should send him some.
I mean, if he's on Wall Street, you're on Wall Street, and
I mean, no, he's not on Wall Street. He had a bestseller in the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal bestseller. Yeah, he's still doing his learning challenges and all this stuff.
Yeah. So give me a quick thesis on what ultra learning is.
So ultra learning is how to learn more effectively. Basically, let's say you study for an hour a subject. How can you learn more in that given hour? So there's some methods to accelerate your learning. And the big idea that I discovered through Scott was how do you create the connections, the bridges between that new topic and the knowledge you already have? So his big idea was this web of connections. So everything, for example, if you discover a new topic in math or a theorem, at first it's completely unknown or foreign to you. It's like you have no connections to that topic, but you have already a web of knowledge within your head. Mm-hmm. And you want to create some small bridges. And so how you do that? And most people, the way they develop knowledge is that they create a web, it originates somewhere, but it's like in empty space. It's like, for example, mathematics, you build up all the chapters and then you build up your knowledge, but it's not connected to your life. How do you make mathematics personal? Like why it's important, because if it's personal, you will be much more eager to learn. It's like if mathematics could help you live a better life, or maybe help you with weight loss, or how do you think about make you more happy, it's something that will be directly linked to you.
How did you manage to do that? I'm just thinking about how I would.
I mean, it's like the mathematics. It's like it's like mathematics. So yes, it's like, I think an easier way to say is like, how do you make it connected to your web of knowledge already? So I had already a foundation, so I connected to the foundation. But how to make it personal is like sometimes you have a theorem, in linear algebra. It's like, for example, you have this, sometimes you change coordinates. You have this 3D axis. Let's say you have a 3D axis.
Sure.
And a lot of about mathematics. I don't know if you know about linear algebra, like eigenvalues and eigenvectors.
No.
So this is basically one of the fundamental theorem in linear algebra. It's like diagonalization. So it's like summarizing data. And how they do it is by rotating the coordinates in your axis. For example, you have let's say this is a 3D axis. So you rotate the axis.
Okay.
So, and basically, for example, how do you think about life? This is kind of, it's like how to make it simple, because there's all this algebra. You're like, oh, it's simply changing point of view, It's like you have a mathematical representation to change a point of view. And maybe in another point of view, you see more clearly. So, I mean, me, I'm a little bit far-fetched, creative it's like, how can I make this mathematics more visual, more like relatable to me? So for me, when I see this theorem of decomposition of eigenvalues and eigenvectors to summarize the data, which is based on this idea of rotation, I see about, what I see is like, you should look at your life from different angles. And in one angle, you can see the information very clearly. Whereas in this angle, it's like, it's not very clear. So it's like, I come up with this kind of, this wisdom behind the theorem. So it's like, but everybody is different, it's like maybe somebody else will see something else. But the thing to note here is that a theorem is just not a theorem, just cold math, abstract math. It's something that you can play with the concept in your head in different ways. And sometimes it doesn't even make sense. What I told you, like about wisdom and changing point of view. Yeah. It's the kind of the way I see the math, it's
I think you explained that well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I made that on the fly, but, yeah. But it's like, it's kind of the way I think about it. And this is something I learned from Scott. It's like, when you learn new knowledge, don't take it, learn it by rote memorization, because now you have a connection in empty space. Basically, it's not connected to your web of knowledge.
Sure.
And within 1 week, you will have forgotten about that concept.
Unless you're connected to the web of knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. For example, if I talked to you about these eigenvalues and eigenvectors without giving you this example of changing, rotating, and seeing things from a different point of view, you have probably forgotten about it. But now you're like, oh, Victor talked about this rotation, changing point of view, and philosophy behind the theorem. But sometimes people add colors and stuff. It's like, how do you make it more the concept more alive?
So this all stemmed from this book Ultralearning that you read.
It was actually from his first book, Learn More, Study Less. It was the first book of Scott H. Young. Mm-hmm. But Ultralearning, it's kind of similar.
Did that really help you with your language learning as well?
Language,
because that's the ultimate test of I don't know how effective you can quickly learn something. I think there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there.
Yeah, I think
claiming in 30 days fluency.
For language learning, I would say, in my own experience, the biggest accelerator for language learning is making a lot of mistakes in speaking. I mean, as often as you can. I mean,
do you want to know something funny? Actually, I don't know if you saw this in Anti-Fragile, but Taleb makes the exact same point. Calls it like learning in the wild.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll just by ordering a coffee, and I live in Sweden, for example. Mm-hmm. Moved here recently, and I'm clearly not a Swede. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But ordering a coffee in ridiculous Swedish is worth a lot more than revising a page of words that I have learned, for example.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, language. I had a hard time with language learning because I was like, I was this perfectionist. I was like, I will study also grammar and make no mistakes. I don't want to look embarrassed in front of people. But then I learned that it was so inefficient, people will learn 2 or 3 times as fast as me with less effort if they simply made a lot of mistakes and, fail as much as you can with the language, because then somebody will correct you and it will stay forever in your brain.
Yeah, that's true. How's your Mandarin then?
My Mandarin, actually, it's I passed the highest test when I was in China. I practice a lot.
Could you go around? Could you sort of handle yourself if you were dropped in the middle of China and had to get back to the big city?
Yeah, I mean, I can handle most basic conversations, but I'm still not the level I really want to be, because I don't put so much effort now every day on learning Mandarin. Mm-hmm. It's like, because it's so, when you see an unknown word, you cannot even read it It's like you cannot even
So
pronounce
wild,
it.
man. I have so much respect for people that try and tackle Mandarin or Japanese or
Yeah, it's like
Korean,
they say the
different
kids
like
in
different
the
alphabets.
yeah the kids in China are the ones that work the most. I mean, at 6 or 7 because they need to remember so many characters. So yeah,
Let, let's let's
it's
talk
really crazy.
about let's talk about China then. You said before one of the main reasons you wanted to learn was like purely strategic, just because it's going to be a force to be reckoned with, whether it's good or bad in the next 20 years, and you sort of want to be involved in it. I know that in Australia, the students, the kids who were ethnically Chinese but grew up in Australia, so they could speak both English and Mandarin with fluency, they just got amazing jobs. Fly over to
Oh
Hong
wow.
Kong, fly over to Shanghai. They'd go over and take up the really good jobs there, whether it's management consulting or accounting or whatever, based on this just, purely the fact that they've got the language. And I always sort of thought about that with a little bit of jealousy, like, that would be freaking exciting, because it's just that one variable, the language. It's not necessarily any other of your competencies. But what do you think? What's your 20-year thesis on China?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't have actually a lot of knowledge about what's going on in China versus. I just have kind of the feedback,
But you were there, right?
Yeah, I was there like 6 months. So
Yeah, I mean that's good enough time, right?
I
You
mean,
can
I
sort
think
of.
the things that really impressed me was the digital payments in China. It's like very few people use cash nowadays. So I arrived in China and I was trying to buy stuff, but I had cash. But nobody used cash anymore. They looked at me like, "Oh, this is like a guy that is not used to be here."
That's interesting. I knew that they obviously had some of the most advanced digital payments, but I didn't know it was so ubiquitous like that. I still assumed that outside of the big smoke, people were paying with
No,
cash, but
actually everywhere. Even
everywhere.
I still have my grandparents living in China, and I went to a temple. So I went to a temple on a mountain, and I thought like, wow, it's so traditional, and they took even digital cash. Like, I was like, actually, I think they took only digital cash. I think I was like,
Wow,
wow, there's this monks and stuff, and I was like, wow, it's only you need to scan a QR code to make a donation.
amazing.
I was like,
So amazing. They must have pretty much no more existing underground economy then.
I think maybe
I
still a little bit,
imagine,
but yeah, I think it got wiped out
yeah, I
pretty
imagine the
quickly.
CCP's got their paws all over the
Yeah,
digital payments. So you're
so
not going to really get away with any sort of sly
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. So that was really impressive, and I was like, wow, I need to learn more of Chinese, more Chinese, because yeah, it's a speed of execution right here. I was like, wow, I never saw that in my life.
There's a pretty ignorant stereotype of China as being quite underdeveloped and just sort of poor. And then you learn a
Yeah,
little bit more about them and you realize, yeah, well, maybe they're still poor, but they're certainly not underdeveloped.
yeah. So yeah, also, like with the American elections, Biden's gonna still take a hard stance on China, to make trades fairer. And it's kind of also because otherwise, if it was still unfair, I mean, the rise will be even more drastic, and China will simply take over.
I think actually, not irregardless, but America's trade policy with China, I don't think it's going to move the needle as much in terms of China's production as just the outcome of COVID-19 is going to. So like the world had to look at this, the whole world had to look at their own supply chains and say, oh shit, we're kind of relying on one country here. Guys, but we might have to just cop a little bit higher cost of production and start producing elsewhere. And the longer this drags out, it's been almost a year now, the longer this drags out, and who knows what the outcome of the vaccines is going to be. The longer this drags out, the more companies are going to be making permanent solutions away from China in their supply chain. And if China's enormous quarter-on-quarter GDP growth is going to continue to rely on the rest of the world trying to manufacture things there, then they're in hot water when, you know, Europe and America, the biggest spending economies, start saying, well, no, we're going to instead produce in Malaysia, or we're going to produce in Thailand, or even better, we're going to produce in our own country.
Yeah,
and then China's, no matter what the trade deal is with America, I just think that demand for Chinese goods will actually fall off a cliff.
Yeah, I think that will happen. But that's why they're switching more to a service industry, like with artificial intelligence and all of that. So they know the weaknesses already. So they're already transitioning. So I was like, with that speed of execution, they can move super fast. So that's why
they can't they? Yeah,
they move super fast. So I'm like, better learn a little bit of Chinese, you know, to be prepared if they if they become the first economy, or I don't know. I mean, it's like you know, it's like this tree of possibilities we were talking about.
Yeah,
it's like it might be possible that they stay second forever, or they might become first. Like you don't know really.
It's going to happen in our lifetime though, which is going to be really exciting to live through.
Yeah, it's going to be very crazy.
Yeah, I have a real soft spot for Taiwan, and so one of the things I've sort of been saying to myself is that I think the inevitable political conflict that is going to explode between Taiwan and China, I think that'll be one of the biggest, sort of almost like the fall of the Berlin Wall. It'd be one of the biggest political moments of our generation.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I really want to be there for it when it happens. So, I mean, you were there. Surely when you were speaking with the locals, do you have any commentary on what the culture is like? Not necessarily their economy.
I mean, it's a culture. Yeah, it's like, you know, it's more uniform. It's like, but yeah, I think the biggest thing is that it's a very, hardworking country.
Yeah.
So it's like the value of, I think, of hard work is really one of the fundamental. But yeah, I have nothing much to say actually on China. I mean,
yeah, sure. Well, look, let's talk about this then. So I was watching a bunch of your videos on YouTube, and there's a very strong theme consistent throughout them all. Quite like a individualistic, take responsibility for yourself. Stop relying on other people. So do you want to talk about that at all?
I mean, it's not really takes responsibility. I mean, not relying on others. I think for me, others can be a great source of accountability. It's like if you have a good friend, for example, you could be keeping me accountable to make YouTube videos, for example, by simply looking at you uploading videos. It creates some kind of accountability. So for me, it's like it's not just a hustle alone. Of your success. It's like my videos were more about, I think, this idea of you know, how to live more. I mean, how to live your life more fully. It's like sometimes I talked about facing your fears. It's like, for example, a lot of people, they don't start a YouTube because they're afraid of other people, like judgment. What will other people think of the videos? And you know, their first videos are not going to be good. You know?
Yeah, I'm definitely afraid of that judgment. I don't even post. I don't post them on my Facebook just because I know, well, people I know are on Facebook. I'd rather random people know about me rather than my own friends.
And actually,
and
that's exactly what you should do. Actually, to
my own parents don't know about my YouTube channel.
Oh, really? Yeah. It's like for me, your fear is actually, you need to overcome all your fears. I mean, the irrational fears, such as this one. You know, it's like. What this fear means actually for you is like there's a part of you that doesn't believe fully in the value you're producing with your videos. That's why the judgment, you know, I think most people will like your videos, but you're like, maybe some guy will criticize my video. So it's like, for me, kind of my advice for you is like, what you should do after this interview is like kind of share it on your Facebook, you know, it can only do good for you, you know.
I should, Victor, but I'm not that brave. I'm not that brave.
Yeah.
No, there's a cultural phenomenon, it's a wrong word. There's a part of the Australian culture called tall poppy syndrome. Mm-hmm. Basically, it stems back to the day when you're in the field and you've got the scythe and you're chopping mm-hmm. the poppies. Mm-hmm. The tall poppy, he gets chopped. And the point is just saying that Australians will lightheartedly, certainly, but nonetheless, seriously, like condemn you for trying to be different. And
got it.
And it's like it will be said in jest. It will never be just like aggressive. I mean, nonetheless, the jest stems in truth, and it's
from what I saw from your videos, you're already kind of different. You know, you're like talking about Nassim, combining different topics. It's like you're already different, so you're afraid kind of your difference. But I mean,
it's more just putting yourself out there.
Yeah,
it's like,
I see.
A ridiculable offense.
Yeah, for me, it's something you need to go through. You know, it's like otherwise you're limiting kind of the possibilities, the outcomes you could get.
Yeah, that's certainly true. I think a part of me is just saying, well, if it gets big, then there'll be no shame in sharing it with the world because you're already validated.
Oh, I see.
You know?
It's like actually, there's something that I learned. I don't know. I think in America, it's like sometimes. I think somebody talked about you're sometimes afraid of your own success. At first, it didn't make any sense to me. I'm like, everybody wants to succeed, of course. And like, how is that possible? That some people are afraid of the success? And for me, it's like what you're saying right now is like you might be afraid of succeeding. I mean, it's like you're not taking the step. You know, it's like for me, it's like if you really wanted to succeed, you would have really maximized, you know, from an objective point of view. Like if you share it on Facebook, it can only add maybe a few subscribers, and it shows a proof of confidence in the value you're providing. So there's no downside. There's maybe like there's one guy who said, oh yeah, your videos are not that professional, or I don't know, but it makes you even more motivated to create better videos afterwards. So it's only upside, you know. Mm-hmm. So that means that you're afraid of your success, or I don't know, like. So yeah, I talk about this, like this topic of fear. I talk a lot about happiness, how to be more fulfilled, the enjoyment of the process instead of the outcome.
Do you have any kernels of wisdom in the field of happiness?
Like basically happiness, the secret is simply to be present to the moment. There's this guy, I don't know if you know him, Eckhart Tolle.
No, actually, but it's funny you say that. Someone earlier today mentioned him to me, and I've never heard of him before.
Oh, really?
Synchronicities, man.
I mean, his book is the most influential book in my life, actually.
Okay, wow.
If I had to quote only one person, if I had to die, I mean, right now, and I had to give you one recommendation, it would be Eckhart Tolle.
Beautiful. Well, tell me about him and his book.
So basically, he says like to live life fully, you just need to be present to the moment. It's like oftentimes we are scattered between the past and the future. You think about your past, maybe the happy moments, the sad moments, and you think also about the future, like what your future will be. But you're never fully in the present, you know, at time t equals 0. You're never here. Mm-hmm. And you need to be here to be happy and to live life fully, to be at your fullest potential. It's like, it's like in the present moment, you have no stress because the stress comes from imagining a future scenario that turns bad, you know. It's
anxiety on either side.
Present moments, you're just like, it's your natural state, kind of. It's like the state where animals reside in. I mean, I'm not explaining the concept as good as Eckhart Tolle, but it's like because it's so deep, this topic. It's like
I have heard Sam Harris make this point. He's who I first heard this point from, and then since heard it again from Naval Ravikant, who you might be familiar with. I don't know. There's a part of me that's just, I don't know what. I don't think it's a fair part of me. I think it's more just a contrarian part of my nature. The fact that meditation is now part of the jargon of the enlightened individual. There's a part of me that's just starting to be like, I don't want to give it credence. I do like the thesis that happiness is found by being present in the moment. Like certain ideas live thousands of years for reasons.
For example, you know, like when I'm drawing, it's like to draw well, you need to be very present. And it's the same thing, you know, it's like when you achieve a goal that you had in mind for years and years, what happens is that you finally become present to the moment. You're like, oh, I finally can enjoy my success.
Yeah.
It's like, so what you want in the end is simply to be present to the moment. You place importance to the different moments in your life. You know, for example, if you're eating breakfast, you say, oh, it's not an important moment. But if you won like $1 million in a day, you'll be ecstatic. And actually both moments, if you live in the present moments, both moments are as important.
Right.
And so imagine it's
and equally satisfying.
Yeah. It's like, if you lived in the present, it's like each moment you won like $1 million. It's like you're putting the importance in everything you do. Just this animal, like living in such peace and groundedness. But yeah, you need to read the book. It's like he explained it so well. It's like because a lot of spirituality books, it's hard to get into the book. But Eckhart Tolle, he writes in a very simple, in simple terms and simple sentences. And when you read actually the book, it's like your mind is at a different frequency. You know, you're like, oh, you kind of calibrate to where he's at. You know?
Yeah, right. Fascinating. But let me steer it back to finance and investing. Do you yourself stay in touch with the markets and invest your own money and all this sort of stuff? Or you just in it for the maths and the algorithm coding?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to invest myself, but actually, I cannot do that. I have like some clauses in my work that I cannot trade.
Why? Because you'll start writing your trades into the algorithm.
No, I think I have a lot of, insider information.
Yeah, you get exposure.
Yeah, so I think I can trade if I tell them beforehand which trades I'm gonna do. But I have a lot of clauses.
Do you just want to let slip anything for all the people playing along at home? What's a nice insider tip?
Just buy ETFs then. Just buy ETFs. It's diversified.
Have you seen the Michael Burry prediction that ETFs are going to lead to the next big global financial crash?
Oh no, I haven't.
It's a pretty compelling argument. So he says that the hugely popular and mainstream trend to diversify through going into an ETF it's keeping afloat a bunch of shitty, inefficient companies that might make up 2-3% of any given ETF. And so they're artificially being held afloat by the really good returns of the best performers within that ETF. And by investors not investing more directly into individual companies,
I see.
The market will eventually correct and realize that 5% of all these different ETFs is just pure bollocks. So that's kind of what he has said. And
yeah,
I quite like that, to be fair, because for instance, you might say, oh, I'm really diversified and own 3 or 4 different ETFs. And, Apple might be in all of those ETFs kind of, because as reliable as the companies are for good returns, the ETF, maker, the product maker, they're going to be putting them in there, right?
I see. Yeah, I would love to watch that video in detail to see what's the underlying assumptions taken.
Yeah, no, you should. He actually also yesterday came out as a short seller for Tesla. So
Yeah, it might be overvalued. I don't know.
it's certainly overvalued, but does that mean that it's going to then crash? That's the question.
It's like the timing is really hard. I mean, it's so
Well,
it's so random.
there was an internal memo leaked from Elon Musk to all the employees, and he basically was commenting that they've got a 1% profit margin or 1% profitability at the moment. And despite the fact that their stock is soaring crazy, ridiculously high, they need to be cutting costs and they need to make sure they're not making the wrong decisions. And the second that some bad news is leaked, that the price is going to tank. He said it was going to tank like a sledgehammer on a souffle. so then Michael Burry comes out with this, and I was thinking, man, I might get on that, because I love Elon and I love Tesla and I love all what it's about. But
it makes a lot of
the case for Tesla
sense.
isn't very strong at the moment. Yeah.
So you're shorting Tesla too?
We'll see. I would like to do it, but will I put my money where my mouth is? That's the ultimate test.
Be careful about the timing. Be careful.
It's easy to say. Yeah, certainly the timing. I've never shorted anything before, so I don't know if it's smart to immediately short the hardest.
Yeah, but even if you make a mistake, it will come, create this investor's experience. It's like so make the mistake,
For sure.
Point I wanted to connect everything, like data science and self-help or spirituality. How can you connect them? And sometimes it's not obvious how you connect data science and self-help.
Certainly not.
It's like how do you combine spirituality with Tony Robbins? It's like the whole point of Tony Robbins is that it's just we like him just for him. It's like his character. So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. It's like, because if you can do that, you have scale. And if you have scale, it's like you can become a self-help company in the Fortune 500. And this is something that has never been done before, because Tony Robbins is the most popular self-help guru out there, but he's not a Fortune 500 company. Right?
No, that is obviously the high value question, the high value answer you're looking for. And I'm not too sure, but to comment on what you're saying about Tony Robbins and maybe how a self-development company could be in the Fortune 500. I have thoughts about gurus and self-development as a cult almost. And written into self-development is a low ceiling. Like, you can only grow to a certain point before the guru becomes a cult leader, and the cult leader then his fall comes quickly after his heights. And this is just because many young men and women go through this stage of school, then they get into university, and then they start looking around the world around them, and they start realizing that maybe they don't identify with their family that well, their friends that well. They don't know what they're going to be doing with their life. They're told they can do whatever they want, but then they try to do what they want and realize it's a very competitive domain and not everyone can really do what they want. And then they're left doing second best. And then there's always striving for what could have been. And then they find Tim Ferriss, or they find Jordan Peterson, and they find Tony Robbins, and they find a self-development guru, and they latch onto him because this person's telling me the answers. And it's very seductive. And if you really get into it, then you don't just have your one guru, you cover all the bases, and you become familiar with all the self-help work from everyone. And one of two things happens. Either you achieve what you were looking for, and then you no longer need self-help in your life because you're individuating yourself. You don't need the self-help to lean back on anymore. Or what happens is you realize it's all bollocks. You don't want to be a part of it. You failed despite what they said to you. You lost all your money paying for their courses, buying their books, and you're in the same position you were before.
I mean, there's a third way, you achieve what you wanted, but you still want more,
But true. But then after you've achieved what you wanted from the self-help, since it is such a low ceiling, after that, it's more whatever your own personal creation is where you're going to find more. I mean, maybe not, that's just my thoughts about self-help generally. But
yeah, I think it's a interesting thing you said, like, the rich, like you become Tony Robbins, like at one point you cannot grow, right? You cannot, or it cannot go as quickly as Amazon.
No, it's because yes, you cannot grow, but you cannot grow in equal measure to your authenticity remaining intact.
I mean, I think it's it's like, I think it's because there's only one guy, it's like Amazon, there's no face. I mean, there's Jeff Bezos, but it's like just a platform. So it has this infinite, like with the computers,
mm-hmm.
it can just go infinite capabilities, And Tony Robbins, he cannot be in 1,000 countries at the same time.
No.
I mean, with Zoom, maybe with Zoom, but it's like, it's not the same. It's like, he still needs to show his face, etc. Whereas, when Jeff Bezos is sleeping, his algorithms are just working, his Amazon workspace, everything is working. So this is
build it once, iterated a million times.
Yeah, so there's this tension between the humane quality of self-help of Tony Robbins, let's say, and this power of algorithms that automate and work at night, that work with infinite power. So this is like me. This is the tension. I'm looking at the intersection.
Really?
How do you create that tension between humane and machine?
Okay. Yeah, that is a very good question. The answer that a lot of the influencers and content creators have been doing recently, which is something I don't really like. There's just inherently I kind of have this like negative reaction to it, but it's the coursework. You become a big self-help guy on YouTube, and then you create your course, and that's something where, like Amazon, you create it once and it can sell 10 times or it can sell 1 billion times, right? Mm-hmm. But you have the asymmetric upside from it, because once you've invested the time once, it can be sold. Exactly. And it can work while you're sleeping. Like this could be sort of what you're looking for. But then the question you ask is finding the tension between, well, it's not going to be so humane. It's not going to be interpersonal, despite no matter how charismatic the person might be creating the product. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the consumer is still sitting in front of a computer looking at it. But then there is, again, it's such a low ceiling for self-help, because already people are starting to call BS on these online courses. Like what gives this person right? What's their qualification? A 25-year-old's, like the amount of young guys selling courses on how to, become Instagram influencer, how to become big on YouTube, how to write well, how to write viral blog posts.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of
fucking noise
for sure. But
a lot of people just taking advantage of people.
Yeah, it's like that's why it comes to your, I don't know if you have this word in English, discernement. Like your, is this word, like discernement? It's like
I don't recognize it, but
it's like your critique, your critical eye. It's like kind of it's like when somebody is bullshitting. You kind of know. I mean,
French
you kind of
word. Know. Said with a bit of a as well. I'm sure maybe a head backwards.
It's like discernement is a very good word. It's like you can distinguish between the bullshit and the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you simply, for example, a guru, you kind of watch a few of his videos and you kind of know. I mean, it's like even if you made a mistake, you kind of know not to follow those type of people. So it's like,
but what about the good ones that you don't know are gurus? Like, for instance, I would say Tony Robbins is 100% a guru, despite the fact I would say, is very authentic in his message. He is nonetheless a guru.
What do you mean? You have this negative image of gurus, or what do you mean?
Yes, I have a negative image of gurus, but not that I have a negative image of Tony Robbins, but I recognize him as a guru. And he might be very authentic in his intentions, but in his outcomes, they're not as effective or as permanent as I suppose he hopes they are. But then again, I'm just
Yeah, I mean, I'm using Tony Robbins
Just a
as an
critic.
example. Yeah, I don't follow actually personally Tony Robbins, but I know he's a number one self-help guru out there.
Yeah.
It's like I prefer like
Multi-millionaire.
yeah, I prefer like Eckhart Tolle. He's like he's very special. Like he actually Eckhart Tolle is more a guru than Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins like sometimes talks about productivity and you know how to achieve success in your life, but Eckhart Tolle only talks about this meaning of life, the depths of life, and so it's hard to get at first sight. It's like
Right.
when you the first time I watched his video Eckhart Tolle, I couldn't relate at all. So I think I waited maybe 1 year finally to get what he was saying. I was like, he's just a weird dude, you know, sitting on a chair, talking slowly. I didn't get it.
Yeah. But what do you think for yourself? Where does it all intersect? You know,
Yeah,
I like the idea of audio. A great way for you to touch upon all of your interests with very low friction is to just speak about them and not rambly or anything. Write down what you're trying to say in as fewer words as possible, and then speak about it, and then release it as a podcast, release as a YouTube video, and then maybe you can attract like-minded thinkers or professionals and well-known people, and then you can interview them about that as well, and just sort of expand on the topics that way. Because that's if you look at it as a business model, that's tried and tested. You know, for instance,
yeah, I think
today,
that's kind of this concept of reverse engineering. It's like there's a lot of successful people. For example, Tim Ferriss doing podcasts. So it's like the blueprint for his success is already out there. You know, it's like
there's a lot of people from our generation, Victor. There'll be a lot of Tim Ferrisses. Good
yeah, for sure.
Well.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And even you know what I talked about, you know, I would probably try to do it, you know, this intersection of technology and self-help. But if I don't do it, probably in the future somebody else would do it, you know.
For sure. 100%.
It's like the tree of possibilities is infinite.
You do have a specific skill that very few people in the global population have. And that is this like intensely analytical way of looking at things. You know, like your go-to was to talk about the tree of possibilities, thinking about it as, you know,
analytically,
if X equals Y, then Y can't equal this. And like, I'm sure you're mapping it out in your head that way.
Yeah, exactly.
And that could be something you definitely play to your benefit.
I think there was Elon Musk, right? With Neuralink, I think something that a chip implanting in your brain or something. I think he has a company doing that, right?
Elon, yeah.
So I'm not super familiar with the product, but I think the next 10 years are going to be really, really crazy. You know, like
I think the first generations of his product are going to be for the benefit of stopping degenerative brain diseases. And then the final goal, you just upload into the chip, and you can then like in Altered Carbon, then you just put the chip in the $10 million robot suit, and then now you've got proper inequity in the population, and then things start getting interesting because you genuinely have different like types of humans. You've got the hyper-intellectual, perfect physical specimens who live off, I don't know.
Yeah, you're gonna have that. You're gonna have also the genetic babies, you know, the modified babies. So yeah, it's gonna happen for sure. It's gonna happen for sure.
Yes, that's totally true. It's definitely gonna happen, and we are so unprepared for the consequences of that, mostly politically. I have spoken about this before as well. Like the second you allow, or not even you allow, the science is good enough that you can look at your fetus and then optimize its height, bone density, brain capacity. Now you're creating superior humans.
Yeah.
And what happens when you start doing that? Well, only the rich are going to have access to these sort of technologies, these possibilities. And then what happens after that? Well, the rich produce these exceptional offspring who are more likely to be successful themselves. And then this iterates over a few generations. And all of a sudden you have a genuine ruling class who are objectively better at intellectual, physical, whatever. And then you have everyone else at the bottom. And then you have...
Actually, I think your prediction is pretty accurate. You're gonna have this noble class again in this new version, because before, you had this noble class in the middle or poor class, and it was really, you had this ruling class. So I think history is gonna rhyme again with this.
It comes in cycles, man. It's only it hasn't been that long that we haven't been under sort of a military rule or a monarchic rule.
Yeah, I think it's gonna happen again.
This idea of all of us having equal say is very, very new.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if you read Nietzsche.
Yeah, I mean,
I just started reading the genealogy of morals.
Yeah.
And it talks about this concept of good and bad, or good and evil. And before good, it was like noble, like it was like just power. What was good was power.
Yeah.
But now with the weak or the slaves, like inverting the dynamics, now good is being like
forgiving.
Forgiving, equal. So I think good's gonna become again power with the genetic babies.
Victor, you're talking to a whole part of Twitter right now who, I mean, they're throbbing at this idea. A part of Twitter that I detest. I really don't like. And it's this like aesthetic, super hard right, racist bunch of people. You're speaking their language right now. Like they want, because the thing is with Nietzsche is he's such a seductive man to listen to. The idea of the Übermensch, the idea of living dangerously, the idea of the fact that you can just fulfill your potential and fuck everybody else, like no sort of consideration for a community. It's seductive, but then again, Nietzsche was a loser in his life. I mean, he wrote these amazing things.
Yeah.
But he didn't live this life of the Übermensch, although some might say he did. But nonetheless, I think there is a danger of reading him and thinking, oh my God, this is actually the answer. Now I figured it out. Which is what some of these types on this part of Twitter I mentioned are doing. And they genuinely want a revert to military rule.
Oh wow! Wow, that's crazy.
They're all for it. I mean, they think there are already subspecies and subclasses of humans. And
wow, yeah, I think I just started reading Nietzsche, racist. So I'm not super familiar with his other work, but it's like Nietzsche. It's really practical. It's like philosophy. I try to apply it to my own life. But yeah, it's this. I think what was really shocking, I mean, with this piece of work is like really your concept of good or bad has been dictated not by you, but by society. Somebody said this is good and this is bad. Yeah. And this is a truth. This is a truth.
And that might be running in contrary to your instincts, what you instinctually think is good and bad.
Yeah.
And then the question is, well, do you trust your instincts or do you trust the culture? And and then the question is, well, maybe I should be trusting my instincts more. But then that runs contrary to the culture. Yeah. And then,
so that was really interesting to read about.
Yeah, it was a fascinating bloke. There's good stuff on YouTube you can find on him. You listen to anything that the Uber Boyos made. Young to Live By.
Okay.
I'm forgetting the other. I think Thoughts on Thinking is the other channel. They make cool Nietzsche content.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I would check them out.
But I think what's missing from the Nietzsche content is this sort of tag on at the end that, Nietzsche's really cool and seductive, but he's probably not the answer. And if you look at the life he led, for me, that's a big indication of it. Maybe it's not fair. His writing should be separated from his actual life, but I think they have to go hand in hand. Like the creator has to be a part of his work.
How was his life? Actually, I'm not super familiar with
So
his life.
he was born in Germany, had a, or was it Austria? No, fuck, I think it was Germany. Anyway, he's born to, his father was a priest or super religious man. Nietzsche was highly intellectual, genius. He went to university. No one was taking his courses. He was a bit of a loser. Taught at university, I should say. Had a lifelong crippling ailments. It's not exactly sure what it was, but he was sick. He was quite a sickly man. He wrote all of his books in like a 10-year period while he was in Switzerland, almost as a recluse. The only woman he ever loved rejected him numerous times. Some people say he died a virgin. Some people say he caught syphilis when he slept with a few prostitutes at the end of his life. No one knew who he was while he was alive. So,
wow.
Yeah. So he was, he never knew what he would become. And after he died, his works got picked up quite a bit, and then the Nazis picked up on it, and then Nietzsche's sister took one of his final manuscripts, The Will to Power, and kind of misrepresented Nietzsche a little bit to suit the Nazi agenda, because it's quite well documented that Hitler was a massive fan of Nietzsche, as was the, also almost the Nazi doctrine was based off this Übermensch idea, this idea that the white Aryan race is superior to all others. And then because he's been so closely affiliated with the Nazis, Nietzsche has been thought of as a bit of a, more of a, just a racist philosopher, right? And not really given that much attention. But these days, I think people are starting to see the difference. And I think the truth is that if Nietzsche were alive to have seen the Nazis, he would have detested it.
Yeah,
because they're just, it's just another group formality. These aren't individuals. Like what Nietzsche wanted was for people to be individuals, to be Übermensch. And
that's interesting that, for me, it's like if he writes something, he should apply to his own life. But I'm not sure why there's this dichotomy, between his writing and his life. Maybe he had, this Übermensch moments in his life. I don't know. How could you could read in all his books?
You could say that he did, because he wrote the books, and just the act of producing something that is so influential that sort of individuates him throughout time almost. It's his potential realized throughout time. But if you look at like physical traits, the idea of having power, of being influential, of leading a very good family, like these other qualities, which I would, associate with like a life well lived, he didn't achieve. But I mean, that's a fascinating part of him. He's certainly a cool dude.
Yeah, I need to read more. It's like it's very hard to get into Nietzsche's work, so I kind of had to watch those different explanations of his work, because I feel like directly reading his stuff.
Don't feel any shame in doing that either. I mean, I'm the same. The only actual books I've read from him is The Genealogy of Morals and Thus Spoke Zarathustra. But like, you can, there's a bit of a pompousness with philosophy. If you haven't read the original text, then you have no right talking about it. That's not true. Man, some explainer videos do a much better job of surmising the work. The question then is, don't just repeat what you're hearing, but listen to all the different things you're hearing and then come to your own conclusion on it. But look, we've gone on for quite a while now. It's actually 1 a.m. for me here.
Oh wow.
But Victor, let me leave you with one question, and then perhaps in the future, when there's more to talk about, we can do it again.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Last question. What two people in history would you like to have seen a conversation between?
Two people in history. I don't know. I have this mind, Einstein, and I think I would say Einstein and Feynman. I don't know. I don't know how. For me, the two geniuses I have in my mind are those
Did
two.
they ever interact? They must have, right?
I'm not sure actually on the dates. Yeah, I think
In fact, I think they did.
yeah, I think they interacted,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, because they were exactly on
The Manhattan Project. Well,
was Einstein still yeah, did they interact? I'm not sure. It's
I'm
like
not sure
what
either.
else did they,
But explain why you would
it's
want to
like
see
for,
this.
yeah, I mean it's like for me it's like those are the two geniuses I have in mind. I mean it's like for, I don't know why, you know, I never thought about this question, and maybe they interacted, I don't know, but it's like for example, Scott H. Young, who was a big inspiration for me, he talks only about Feynman and what, you know, how everything he learned was kind of through Feynman. And Einstein, I know for me is the most intelligent guy on Earth, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like if you had a YouTube channel, if it was possible, I would have loved to watch those two talk. I don't know, you know, maybe they talk about life in general. Like I want to see them not talk about physics or what they do, you know, in this specialized field, but just talk about the meaning of life, how to become, you know, insanely good at what they do. Because I think those two have the answers, you know.
Yeah,
If you
you're
combine,
right. That would be such a great chat.
it's like you know, now you know, now you have Tim Ferriss interviewing experts. You have that in the modern times, and you have great people. But it's like the classics is Feynman and Einstein, just you know, chatting on over a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And I think that would be crazy,
You're
so
totally right.
crazy.
You're totally right. Imagine if Feynman was alive now, he would be the #1 podcast guest for all everyone out there. You know, like that sort of charisma plus intelligence plus worldview. Yeah,
Yeah, everything.
I'm
And
on board with
yeah,
it. That'd be
Feynman,
amazing.
I watch I think a few of his lectures, and he's so charismatic. You know, he has he was
Yeah,
in
he's
this
got proper
suit.
charisma.
He has
He's not
such a
a
charisma.
yeah. Rote learning didn't destroy his personality. he,
Yeah,
he
yeah.
managed to come through the other side.
So yeah, it's like if you had like videos of those two, it would be amazing to watch for forever.
Well, Victor, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm sure we'll get a chance to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you want to do another interview, maybe I don't know when I'm a bit more successful, you know, so YouTube.
Well, yeah, and also when there's something very specific to talk about. But thank you. Really appreciate you giving me the time.
Yeah, thank you very much, and
I'll
thank you for putting up so late actually at your place.